Hello and welcome to Girls Got Game. I'm your host, Sue Christianson, and today we will talk about women's basketball most anticipated transfer portal candidates, NCCAW's National Championship Recap, and FIFA's new exciting rule in favor of women coaches. So stay tuned because Girls Got Game starts right now. And we're back. I hope you liked my little duck friend. Today when we got into studio, we were told that there was a bunch of ducks hidden around for UCF's Day of Giving. And we all found the little ducks, and we're going to find out after studio what's awaiting for us at the library when we turn them in. So stay tuned for that because that's very exciting. We had so much fun. With me, though, to talk exciting basketball news, I have Noah and Mason. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. So excited to talk about women's college transfer portal. You know, it's not March, but still basketball is going on.
Yes.
Doing great. I'm happy to be back. Though it is no longer March, we get to continue it for a little while longer into April and talk about the transfer portal, the best month of sports.
Yes, very exciting stuff ahead. The women's transfer portal opened on Monday, so we have been in anticipation to see what will happen. Basically, there was someone specific who started this, who is the most anticipated transfer, probably. You guys, can you take it away and talk about Ms. Crooks?
Yeah, Audi Crooks, averaging 25.8 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and a 64.9% field goal percentage. She's just, was a dominating force for the Iowa Cyclones, and now she's transferring. So another team in either the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, probably a power conference team is going to land, in my opinion, one of, if not the best player right now in women's college basketball. And she's been consistent all 3 years of her career so far, and she wants to go out there, go win a championship for her team. I mean, she's an absolutely dominating force in the paint. She's 6'3". She can lay it up over anybody, and I'm super excited to see where she goes.
26 points per game is actually insane. She seems amazing. I am very excited to see what's going to happen for her. What does this transfer portal mean for this game? How is it going to be changed?
I think it's huge for women's sports as a collective, not just women's basketball, but women's sports as a whole, because often a lot of sports have pretty major transfer periods or signing periods. Baseball has the winter meetings. Men's college basketball has the transfer portal, and the women's portal has kind of lacked in the last couple of years. But you have your best player in all of women's basketball right now entering the transfer portal. She's going to command a premium from NIL spending from schools that are going to have to shell up some money to pay her. I imagine she gets an NIL deal close to $1 million. And that's going to be huge because most schools, as I've talked about before on here, spend like 75% of their money on football, another 10% on men's basketball, leaving like 10% to be spent on every other sport. So having a school that's going to spend $1 million on one player like her is going to be huge. For reasons like that, I think Texas is going to be a big contender in her, a power SEC school that's coming off of a big Final Four run. She would pair really, really well with Madison Booker, the forward for Texas, and I think it would create like an unstoppable duo that could go and win it all.
Absolutely. Great points all around. I do think Texas would be a great smart move. Noah, do you agree?
Yeah, I like Texas. I'd also like to see, maybe she goes to Iowa. Iowa State's big rival. That could happen too.
Could happen. We're going to now talk about some other anticipated women. I'm going to start real quick and talk about mine, who is kind of up there as well, I think. Kimora Johnson. She is incredible. She plays for UVA. She's a junior guard, 21 years old, and she has 1 year of eligibility remaining. She's pretty short, which is, don't see that all the time, but you see it in women's basketball. But she is averaging 19.5 points per game in 2025 to 26, second in the ACC. Primary ball handler with strong court vision. She's got at least 5.9 assists per game. And she's a high volume shooter. She's not scared to take those shots, and it's very, very impressive. She is Virginia's all-time leader in career three-pointers, which is pretty impressive. So I do think that she is going to be somebody else that is exciting to look for in her future.
Very impressive at a school that's a very good basketball school too.
Yes, absolutely. And to be kind of a leader there already, junior year, she still has a year too. It's very exciting. I do want to go over Mason. Who did you pick out?
I picked out Liv McGill. She's a transfer from Florida. She played 2 seasons at Florida and was an absolute centerpiece for the Gators. She averaged at least 20 points a game with 6 rebounds and 6 assists. She was the only player in the country to put up those numbers, which is truly insane. Along with that, she has the ability to rack up rebounds and assists, which is huge. She might be the most dynamic player in the portal and would have the case to be the best player in the portal if it wasn't for Audi Crooks. And she's only a sophomore, so she still has 2 more years of eligibility. She's 5'9", so she's a decent height for a women's basketball player. She's a very, very dynamic player, and I think she's going to make a very big impact in the portal. Honestly, I could see her. I was looking at places I think she could land last night, and 2 of the places I found, someone said UCF because she would be the face of the franchise here. They have a new head coach. She would be the face of the franchise here. But a more realistic option, I think, is Minnesota, as she's from Minneapolis, and she would get to go back home to her home state and join the Gophers, with a team that's coming off of a Sweet 16 appearance and looks very, very good.
Wait, I love it. You're so wholesome today, Mason. I love it. That actually, I can definitely see that happening. Do you see her as a primary scorer for whatever team she is on?
Absolutely. That's why I think she fits pretty well in Minnesota, because they're graduating a starting guard in Anya Battle, and so there's an opening at a guard spot where she could essentially be just very similar to UCF, the face of the franchise there, and can kind of run the team.
Yes, absolutely. I think she is able to handle those big moments well.
Definitely.
And when it's supposed to be lock-in time, she's somebody that has shown herself that she can lock in and she can get what needs to be done.
For sure. She wants the ball in her hands.
She does. And I love that confidence, and you see the confidence on the court, which definitely helps. All right, Noah.
Up next, I've got Danny Carnegie, and she's a transfer from Georgia, averaged 17.8 points per game. She's going to be a junior coming onto this year, 5.3 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and a field goal shot percentage of 42.7. She had a 29-point game against Vanderbilt, which, if you know anything about women's basketball, Vanderbilt has been a very dominating force recently. And overall, I think she's a little bit undersized, a tad bit undersized, but she's a really good three-point shooter, and she, averaged pretty good pointage per game, and she also earned first-team All-SEC honors, one of the best players that Georgia has had for women's basketball in a long time. And honestly, I think that that she has a pretty realistic shot to go somewhere like Ohio State. Ohio State women's basketball, I think they could use her. She's very good from the three-point range. That's like her main calling card. That's why her field goal percentage is a little bit lower, because she's always taking aggressive shots. She's someone who's going to take the hard shots, little bit undersized to go up in the paint and just lay it up, but her shooting ability is really good. And I think, Ohio State's a team that I really would like to see get her.
Absolutely. When you watch her, what's part of her specific skill set sets her apart from everybody else? Why do you think that she stands out from the rest of these girls in this portal?
I think her aggressiveness, again, her three-point shooting is just, in my opinion, it's elite. You just watch her. She can take one from the corner. She can take one from, the top of the three-point boundary. And I think overall she's going to be a really good player.
Absolutely. Mason, I want to ask you the same question about yours.
I think Liv McGill is the most dynamic player in the portal. Audi Crooks is very, very good in the paint, but lacks in the defensive level and doesn't rack up the rebounds and assists that Liv does. When you can score 20-plus points a game while also racking up almost double-digit rebounds and assists, you're the most dynamic player in college basketball.
You're absolutely right. That is something that had stopped me from seeing Audi as like that main person, just because she is an offensive player, but she doesn't really play.
She scores the majority of her points in the paint, which is insane and huge for a team, but also you need to be able to score some from outside the arc, and that's what Liv McGill does very well.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And even with Kimura, she also, I was talking about, she's kind of going to change the program as well. These women are all people that have the potential to change the program, be the face of this program, which is really exciting, especially with UVA changing their coaching, which is also something to look forward to. But all of these women will probably change their teams. And
they all look to be the faces of franchises wherever they go.
Absolutely. And they're going to make lots of money.
For Carnegie, 35.4% from the 30, that is very good. Especially I think in where there's not quite as much scoring in the men's game sometimes. I think all those 3-point shots, especially from Carnegie, that's what's going to make her really stand out in this portal.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you guys for coming on the show. The Duck also thanks you. You guys were amazing, and that was an awesome segment. Unfortunately, that's the most time that we have for this segment, but stay tuned because we got one right after this.
The quick interruption. We'll be right back for your show. For now, let me give you a quick rundown of what the Hitting the Field Network has planned for you. My name is Edgar Rodriguez, and I'm the host of Hitting the Field Season 22, live streaming every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. There, you'll find me and our expert guests talking about everything in the wide world of sports. On Tuesday, get ready because it's Season 10 of Nighttime. Hosted by Andrew Gregg and Joe Geiger, Nighttime keeps you up to date on everything happening in the world of college sports and UCF athletics. Moving on to Wednesday, we have Season 8 of The Combine, hosted by our very own Kathleen Moore. This podcast takes a deep and technical dive into everything NFL, and you won't want to miss that. On Thursday, we go live with Bets, where our Bets boys, Ben Huber, Augie Aronson, and Scott Harris, will give their expert opinion that might just make you some money. On Friday, Season 4 of Girls Got Game takes over with only the hottest topics in women's sports, hosted by none other than Sue Christianson and Mia Flores. And to round out the week, Season 3 of HGFC comes on Saturday, hosted by Octavius Lawrence and Santiago Molina. Soccer never stops, and HGFC will be your stop for everything in the world of football. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where you can find non-stop additional content, as well as stay updated on all HTFN news. Lastly, leave a like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the Hitting the Field Network on YouTube. That's all I got. I'm Edgar Rodriguez signing off. Enjoy the rest of your show.
And we're back with my friend Kathleen Moore. How are you doing, Kathleen?
I'm doing so good. It's an honor to be called Sue Christianson's friend, so it's a good start to my morning.
You've been hyping me up all day, all morning. I can't even. Kathleen is here to talk about something really exciting. UCLA wins first NCAA Women's Basketball Championship in program history with commanding 79-51 score victory over South Carolina, which I think you were kind of surprised, right?
I would say so.
I was a little surprised. That's not an easy thing to have such a dominating win. So I was a little taken aback. You?
Well, this is definitely one of the most lopsided natties I would say we've seen in women's NCAA basketball in recent years. So that's pretty exciting to see. And I also was completely shocked that South Carolina basically got steamrolled after beating UConn, who was undefeated.
Yes, that was insane. I was very shocked about that game as well, the UConn game. Which was really interesting is that the game was also never close. Mm-hmm. It was kind of just like, okay, this whole time we kind of know what's happening, which is never easy to see. But yes, the loss definitely denied South Carolina their third title in 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So, which is always upsetting to see, and you know.
They've had so much talent over the last few years, and fans will be disappointed about the losses over the last few years. However, you still have a really talented roster. You're always going to do well in your recruiting process because you have an incredible coach in Dawn Staley who's going to bring in even more talent as long as she is in the building. And but someone I do want to highlight is the Betts sisters. This is just like a fun little fact, I want to say. So Sienna and Lauren Betts, they went to high school together. They're sisters, obviously, and they won their state title together, and now they won the Natty together. Isn't it so cute?
And I'm a big Lauren Betts fan. We were talking about off screen about her dancing. And with the cheerleaders.
The dancing was so cute.
It was adorable. She's adorable. She loves life. She's so sweet. I just saw another interview of her where somebody giving her the interview question was somebody from her AP
from
stats
high
class.
School, yes.
And she made sure to talk about it, and she's cool. And she's also How tall is she?
6'7". Sorry, Shay.
Sorry, Shay. We had to do it to you. She is a giant woman, and it's amazing.
Yes.
It makes her a dominating force.
What a unit.
And to do that with her sister, are you
know.
kidding me? It makes me want to cry.
But she's also such a baller, by the way. 25 points, 12 rebounds in the Natty. She shot 68.8% from the field. Are you kidding?
Yeah, that is absolutely insane.
She's nuts.
She is nuts.
She's nuts.
She definitely was a very vital part in this win and all of their wins before. UCLA, though, they set the tone of what the game was going to be very, very early. In the first quarter, it was a 21-10 lead.
Yeah.
Which I feel like in basketball you don't really see that a lot. I feel like I feel like normally in games like this it gets close. It gets close because you're also thinking about so many other aspects of your game where you're defending your offense and that you don't really have time to plan such a incredible leap like that. So I was just very shocked. South Carolina struggled offensively all game, shooting only 29% from the floor.
Yeah.
When it's like, I feel this way about like hockey too. When I see a team doing bad and you don't have like no shots on goal, I'm like, guys.
I know it's hard to watch teams struggle because you know that South Carolina is a team that if they put the ball up enough, it's going in.
Yeah.
It's going in.
I know. So I wish they just had that opportunity, but obviously they didn't with UCLA's offensive or defensive game plan.
Yeah, I mean, UCLA had an incredible performance. It's really nice to see them have so much success from their first national championship. But I think that this kind of opens up the conversation of, is the talent gap widening in women's NCAA basketball?
Your thoughts?
I think it is. It's like the Final Four was all one
so
seeds.
interesting,
It was
yeah.
all one seeds. You don't necessarily see a lot of upsets or Cinderella stories when it comes to women's March Madness.
Yes.
And so I think that as NIL starts to increase, as women's NCAA basketball gets more viewership, I think that talent gap is only going to widen.
Yeah.
Because I think that obviously the folks that are going to go to the top 10 schools in the nation are going to be the ones getting paid the most. Just the talent differential is going to grow exponentially, and it's already pretty large, I would say.
How do you think that's going to affect the whole sport and women that are, 10 right now wanting to be where Lauren Betts is right now?
I mean, it's just a matter of like you gotta put in the work. Like you have to find a way to differentiate yourself from everybody else to get yourself into a position where you can be on one of these leading rosters.
Yeah.
Because the opportunities to sneak on, they're getting smaller and smaller. As the talent keeps getting greater, you're gonna have less opportunities if you're not up to that standard.
Yes. It is sad in some ways, but obviously it's just kind of how things go. Sometimes I feel like it's just the inevitable. It's going to happen.
It's a total NIL problem too. I mean,
Yeah, it's not the first time that we've seen something like this, but it is what it is. I did want to talk a little bit about somebody else as well. I wanted to talk about Gabriela Jaquez, who also she's just another UCLA standout player who's very important to this win. Up there with Lauren Betts, I feel. She had a game high of 21 points, 10 rebounds, double-double in the biggest game of the season, obviously. And she's in the middle of her senior year, so I think she's going to be playing again. But she controlled all of the pace of everything, and she attacked the mismatches and set the tone for the game as well, I think, with Lauren Betts. I think that was important that they worked together on that aspect. I am scared going back to South Carolina's perspective. South Carolina's perspective. The defenses in them, they looked very uncomfortable, and I just hope that they get out of that, which I think that you thought that they were going to get out of that as well. Like, I don't think this is going to, especially with Dawn, I don't think that it's going to something that sticks with them, but it's always something that could hurt them in the future. Things linger.
Right. I mean, naturally, South Carolina is going to come into next season with a chip on their shoulder. They've got something to prove. They have something they want to say.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt in my mind that Dawn Staley is going to motivate a new class of freshmen and transfers to get it done.
I'm excited to see it. It's amazing. Thank you, Kathleen Moore. Thank you for talking about the talent gap. That was very important. This was very fun. Unfortunately, that's all that we have, but stay tuned because we're talking FIFA next.
It's that time of year again, and another NASCAR Cup Series season means another edition of the Daytona 500. Once again, fans flooded the Daytona International Speedway last weekend to cheer on their favorite drivers. And their not-so-favorite drivers, too. And as always, our HGF Bets crew was fired up to make their picks.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
But let's take a look at how those predictions played out. Augie took a look at the reigning Daytona 500 champ and thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I'd choose another outright race winner in the number 24 car, William Byron.
Coming off of 2 straight wins in the 500, Byron had a shot at being the first driver ever to make it 3 in a row.
Look, he's going to be the first person to make history.
But unfortunately for Augie, the 24 car had a quiet race, crossing the finish line in 12th place with 0 laps led. Scott, on the other hand, had his sights set on none other than
Ross Chastain,
hoping he would finish top 3. The Melon Man raced a promising drive, trading the number 1 spot throughout the 500 miles and leading a total of 12 laps. But to Scott's disappointment, he finished far from the top 3 as the 20th driver to take the checkered flag, meaning that the desk was now 0 for 2. But luckily, Ben decided to put his money on an absolute veteran.
for my pick, like I said, Battle Busch, I got Kyle Busch to finish top 3.
Another driver hungry for his first Daytona 500 win, Kyle Busch rocketed his car to pole position in qualifying, starting the big race in first. The number 8 car was clearly on a mission, racing at the front of the pack and leading 19 laps on the night. But even after finishing the second stage in 4th, Busch could only manage a 15th place finish in the end. So who should the boys have placed their bets on? How about the man who led only 1 lap the entire race? That's right, Tyler Reddick's number 45 car started the final lap in 4th place and steered past the chaos to cross the finish line in first. Reddick's heroic last lap pass was followed up with some well-deserved burnouts as the 2311 racing team celebrated their first win in the Great American Race. Take a bow, Tyler Reddick. You are now a Daytona 500 champion.
And we're back to talk about something super awesome and exciting with all of my friends Anya, Miguel, and Edgar. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Happy to be back.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
It'll be amazing.
Doing great. Happy to be back on Girls Got Game.
This is a perfect group to have talk about this, and I'm really excited to get into it with you guys. So let's just go. FIFA now requires every team in women's FIFA competitions to have now at least 1 female coach, assistant, or head coach. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. This applies to all women's FIFA tournaments everywhere, and including the 2027 Women's World Cup. Very exciting. Edgar, I wanted to start with you.
Yeah.
Were you shocked to hear this? What were your initial feelings, and what did you learn?
Not shocked, but proud of FIFA for once, because usually FIFA is in the headlines for the wrong reasons, right? Usually it's, expanding tournaments unnecessarily, for their financial benefit, right? But this time finally actually helping the game, and I think it's huge for the women's game. You mentioned the 2027 World Cup. It's actually going to start before that in the 2026 U17 and U20 World Cups as well. So we're going to see these changes this year. It's very exciting, but of course headed into next year, it's going to be the most watched World Cup in history, as it always is, for the Women's World Cup. It's going to be very exciting. National, club, senior, and youth levels. So it's going to impact the game, not just at the very highest level, but all throughout.
And to just show you the impact, at the 2023 Women's World Cup, there was only 12 out of the 32 head coaches were women. So we're going to see a lot of women getting positions that they deserve. This is the first mandated gender representation rule for coaching at the global level in women's sports. Huge historical moment for all women athletes, all women coaches. This is encouraging change, and FIFA is, again, in the headlights for a really good reason. They're enforcing this change, and we're only going to get further if people enforce these rules. So it's very exciting. I want to jump it to Miguel. you were saying only about the huge gap. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I watched the World Cup as well, and first off, amazing. It was so entertaining. I enjoyed it so much. A lot of moments were more entertaining than the Men's World Cup, honestly, and I had a lot of fun seeing like the actual development of these teams, and just seeing the gap is honestly astounding. I didn't notice the gap until I started watching the games, and I realized it, and I looked at the stat. But another stat looking at this requirement is it's not just one person is required to be on the staff, it's two. One of them just has to be an assistant coach or a head coach. So that plays a huge role because they could have just signed anyone on to be medics or staff. No, they have to actually be an assistant coach or a head coach, which promotes that diversity and that push and openness for them and those positions that, you know, they're seeking, which needs to be done in order for a lot of people to start watching the sport more and actually feeling more connected to these players, especially when players go off and, you know, hang up the boots and become those coaches. They know how the players feel and they know what it takes to actually like perform at the highest level, or even like you said, even, you know, U17, 20s.
Right.
So all these levels, it's important to know and gain that experience.
That's a good point you brought up, though, because yes, head or assistant coach, and then two others visible on the bench. So again, you talk about, you know, younger players aspiring to get to that level. They're going to see, you know, they're going to see that the doors are opening more for them, and it's going to encourage so much more participation. You know, not just at the coaching level, but just overall.
Yes, with this being at such a peak right now, you know, just revenue, attendance, everything, why do you think they decided right now to decide this rule? Why did they think that this was a great time to start now?
If I can butt in,
Yeah.
I honestly think it's because a lot of women's sports is getting a lot of traction right now with players, and I think this is FIFA's chance of being kind of the good guys in this scenario, because they're not always, kind of rarely. So seeing them kind of put that initiative in their coaching, I think sets a good example, especially considering in years past we've had issues with, you know, the U.S. women's national team bringing up the fact about unfair pay and all that stuff. I think it's FIFA trying to show that like soccer can keep up with basketball in the women's side of sports. It can keep up with hockey. It can keep up with all the other leagues as well.
Anya, I want to keep going with you actually. This is obviously a step up for women's sports, especially in soccer teams. How will these coaches be able to better understand their teams? How is this going to affect all of these teams?
Yeah, and I mean, there's always going to be the argument of, well, the coach who is the best is going to be the best for the team no matter their gender. However, in sports psychology, there is a clear difference between how male coaches and female coaches teach, and it really does differ depending on which team they're also. A lot of male coaches, they'll have a very much black and white, just get it done mentality, but women coaches, they will see the nuance in the culture of the team, knowing that there's a bit of nuance behind emotions. And sometimes, and this was something I read from a different athlete just on a forum, she was talking about how the female coaches she's had in her life, not necessarily for soccer, but for the sport that she played, was they knew what you could play through and they knew what was like, okay, this is where you need to stop. They didn't go too easy. They didn't go too hard either. So having that empathy is really important to push your team to the point that they don't break, but they will just get better and better and better.
Absolutely. Women and men are both so differently, especially when they play sports. And I feel like they need to be taught differently sometimes to absolutely be at their fullest potential. And women talking to women, women teaching women is always going to be better than a man teaching a woman. At least that's how I feel personally. Obviously, people have amazing male coaches as well, but I just feel like more in general, on average, they will be brought to their fullest potential.
And the stats back that up, because 4 of the last 6 Women's World Cup, you know, the winning teams have been coached by a female head coach, you know, so that trend is there, right? You can't underestimate that. You brought up
ignore it.
No, not at all. And you brought up the U.S. women's situation previously. Now Emma Hayes stepping in, you can kind of just tell the players are having more fun under her. And then obviously Luis Rubiales. I know you wanted to touch on that. Another controversial moment. And hopefully this rule kind of, you know, pushes us away from those those moments you just don't want to see.
You just don't want to see those moments. And like for those of you who don't know, in 2023 World Cup, Luis Rubiales, during the celebration, while they were getting up and receiving their medals and the World Cup, went out and kissed Jennifer Hermoso.
Yeah. In the Spain national team.
In the Spain national team, yes. And they started putting charges. It became this whole controversy. And they say in one of their proudest moments to be kind of outshined, or that happened in that moment, it really takes away from what they're supposed to be celebrating. They made a huge accomplishment, their first World Cup in history. And it's a huge moment for all these players just to be taken away like that, just because a coach thought he could
Dictate,
exactly. Just
Absolutely.
steal the show, and he thought he was in his right to do so, and he kept arguing like it was both ways, like it was mutual, which was not.
Did not look mutual.
No. Not at all. No. So, and it's to push away from that and not have those moments when it's supposed to be celebration and this impact on the sport itself, especially with the growth of women's sports, especially in soccer.
Yeah.
So,
Miguel, that was such a great point to bring up. That was amazing. You made my heart warm. I agree. That was a completely great point to add to it. I did want to ask a question for you guys. With this happening, this being mandated, who do you think is next? What leagues are going to be next? Who is going to do this?
That's an interesting one. I'm kind of inclined to see if the NCAA maybe does something in the future. Like, I don't know what you guys think, but that's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, and I know that I believe University of North Carolina, they're actually implementing not necessarily a rule, but a very, very heavy suggestion for their athletics department to have at least one female coaching staff for all their women's teams, because they've seen the success already in one school. So I agree with the NCAA. I also want to see the PWHL. Hockey has always been very male-dominated. And seeing the PWHL have this success, I want more women representation in women's sports, and having a coach lead a team is one of the best ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll take a little bit of time. I think people will want to see this. You know, I still believe that people really think that men run the NCAA. You know, there are still a lot of people that believe that and back it up because funding-wise and everything. So I do think that will take a little bit more time. Again, FIFA is like completely blew me out of the water with this. But PWHL, I do think we're kind of getting there, especially with how many women we are following in coaches and, you know, players that everybody has been so attracted to recently. I think that it's going to get so much more traction. But yes.
Another one that's interesting to me too is Athletes Unlimited softball. I mean, just looking at what UCF has been doing this year, obviously killing it so far in the Big 12. I think with the AUSL kind of gaining more traction now, adding more teams, of course, our very own Coach Bear going to the Utah Talents, I think that is one that we should also keep our eye on as one that might be a driving force for this as well moving forward.
I love that.
100%.
I do think so.
Yeah.
I do have one last question before we wrap it all up. Do you think that this change in this rule is going to change how young players are seeing their future? Do you think that they will see other pathways now? Do you think it will open opportunities?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You want to go into it, Anya, or?
Boy, I can, but I know we're running out of time on this segment. But to keep it brief, it's going to show women that they don't just have to be the face of a sport. I know that's a very popular thing for any athlete, especially when they're good. I mean, look at Caitlin Clark. She's practically the face for the WNBA. But you don't really hear about the coaches, and I want the coaches to get the recognition more, and I want women to understand that they can be in these leadership positions because they have what it takes. They have the skills, they have the experience. There's really no reason to limit them, and there's all the more reason to continue to uplift them.
Absolutely. Women leadership in women's sports is something that needs to happen.
And at the end of the day, that's who the players look up to, right? That is their point of reference. So if
Those
they
are
keep
their role
seeing,
models.
Of course. So if they keep seeing more and more, it's just naturally going to encourage them. Another one, Serena Wigman, the English manager right now, the most successful in European history, right? So again, the track record is there. I think FIFA did it at the perfect time.
Yes.
And, you know, the game is growing like never before. It's very exciting in women's soccer right now.
Yes, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. But thank you guys for coming. You're all amazing, and I love you. I hope you guys enjoyed the show this week, and we will see you back next week.